I would like to welcome you, all of you, for this Bhagavad-gita lecture evening. We will be reading from the Bhagavad-gita as it is, chapter 4, text 15, and we have the great pleasure of having His Holiness Prahladananda Maharaj with us. Maharaj, please, the stage is yours.
Okay, if you have the possibility of having an actual live video, it's better than talking to a name. I never had a lecture where there are just names in the audience. But that's if your video works or if you can be live. Yes. I'll read the verse in the Sanskrit and the translation, the purport, so everyone can follow along. It's from Bhagavad-gita as it is, chapter 4, Transcendental Knowledge, text number 15. Evaṁ jñātvā kṛtaṁ karma purvam api mumukṣubhiḥ kuru karmaiva tasmāt tvam pūrva-taraṁ kṛtam. All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding by transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Srila Prabhupada's purport: there are two classes of men. Some of them are full of polluted material things within their heart, and some of them are materially free. Krishna consciousness is equally beneficial for both of these people, the persons. Those who are full of dirty things can take to the light of Krishna consciousness for a gradual cleansing process, following the regular principles of devotional service. Those who are already cleansed of the impurities may continue to act in the same Krishna consciousness so that others may follow their exemplary activities and thereby be benefited. Foolish persons or neophytes in Krishna consciousness often want to retire from activities without having knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Arjuna's desire to retire from activities on the battlefield was not approved by the Lord, but need only know how to act. Retire from the activities of Krishna consciousness, to sit aloof, making a show of Krishna consciousness, is less important than actually engaging in the field of activities for the sake of Krishna. Arjuna is here advised to act in Krishna consciousness, following the footsteps of the Lord's previous disciples, such as the sun god Vishwan, as mentioned herein before. Supreme Lord knows all his past activities, as well as those who are persons who have acted in Krishna consciousness in the past. Therefore, he recommends the acts of the sun god who learned this art from the Lord some millions of years before. All such students of Lord Krishna are mentioned here as past liberated persons engaged in the duties, discharge of duties allotted by Krishna. Evam jñātvā kṛtam karma pūrvaiḥ mumukṣubhiḥ kuru karma tasmāt tvam pūrva-taraṁ kṛtam. All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following their footsteps. Mumukṣubhiḥ Krishna prasthaya bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Vicharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Sakara. So again, if anyone has joined us, if you have your video on, if it's possible, that way I can talk to a form rather than a name. Of course, names have forms too, but you probably have more of a, probably the devotee has more of a form than the name does. Here it mentions about Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. Our Shastra is actually composed of instructions to Krishna, by Krishna to his devotees, and subsequently what activities the devotees did according to those instructions. Our basic philosophy is quite simple. Our sabandha is that everything belongs to Krishna. And therefore, as Krishna said in the previous verse, Namam karmani limpanti name karma pali spriha iti mam yo bijananti karma virana sapadite. That Krishna does not, he works in the material world, but he's not bound by his activities. Imam karmani limpati name karma pali spriha. He's not attached to the results of the activities. One who knows this, he doesn't become entangled in the reactions of his work. So that's based upon the fact that Krishna is a proprietor of everything. Therefore, there is no question of gaining anything in this world, nor can we lose anything. Because if we can't gain anything, we can also not lose it, because we have nothing to gain or lose. The only thing we have to lose is our illusion that we can gain and lose. Since whatever we think now is ours doesn't really belong to us, it all belongs to Krishna. And since in the future, if we so-called get something, we never get it because it's still Krishna's. And if we lose something, we never lost anything that wasn't, because it would never belong to us in the first place. It's almost like if you go to the bank, some bank in Germany or Oslo, wherever you are, and you go into the bank and you declare, my dear people who work in the bank, right now I'm going to give you back everything that's in the bank. You can have all the money back. Of course, no one will take you seriously because none of the money in the bank belonged to you in the first place. So how can you give it back to them when it didn't belong to you? So if nothing eternally belongs to us, then we have nothing to lose. And if in the future, whatever we think belongs to us doesn't belong to us, therefore we haven't gained anything. So all this gain and loss is all an idea. And the idea is based upon the fact that we don't recognize who the actual proprietor is, namely Krishna. Therefore, Maya is always there to help us be an illusion. As it says that Krishna bahir mukha bhagavan chetare nikatasta tare japatiya dare. Maya is just next to us. And as soon as we turn our face away from Krishna, then at once Maya slaps us and puts us into a material illusion. And what is that material illusion? Well, it's very easy to see it. You just have to take a mirror and put it in front of you, and you can see the illusion that we're in. As I sometimes say in the class, we wake up in the morning and we ask the mirror, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the greatest of them all? And immediately the mirror tells us, my dearest soul, after so many pious activities, after so many lifetimes, now you have the opportunity to see the actual deity within the mirror. And seeing the wonderful image that we see before us, the manifestation of our worshipful deity, we make a vow. Today I'm going to serve my deity with unalloyed attention, with full devotion and with consistency throughout the whole day. In other words, with full affection and attention. And making that vow, becoming enlivened by our having darshan with the deity, if we're pious, we perform abhishek by taking a bath or a shower. And then we clothe our deity, we decorate our deity. We feed our deity 5 kinds of food stuff. And then when we're ready, we go out into the world to spread the glories of our deity all over the world in the name of Sankirtan, so that others can appreciate the glories of our deity. So everyone has a worshipful deity. There's no one who's not worshiping some deity. But the first deity we worship, we can see in the mirror. And then our followers, maybe our wife, our children, our dog, our pet parakeet, they're all devotees of the deity. And if someone likes the deity, they're devas. And if someone doesn't like our deity, then they're asuras. After all, as we say in the Bhagavad-gita, the fools, they deride at my descending in this human-like form. They don't know my transcendental nature and how actually I am the Lord of so many things that be. So this is commonly called illusion. But Krishna speaks Bhagavad-gita to the sun god Vivishwan so that he can understand, Vivishwan can understand, that Vivishwan is not actually the sun god. Just like Krishna speaks the Bhagavad-gita to us, so that we can understand that actually we're not this deity that we're in. We're the soul within the body. But Krishna doesn't tell the sun god, my dear sun god, you're not your body, so therefore you should stop shining. No, the sun god also has a duty as a Kshatriya, and he does his duty, but not in the material concept of life attached to it. Now, if we know we're not this body, now we have a choice, because within this body we have this subtle mind. And as Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita, in our mind is flowing so many thoughts and ideas. Some of those ideas are how to enjoy the material world, how to control the material world, which is basically the two material ideas. Ishvaraham aham bhogi, siraham balavan sukhi. I am the enjoyer and I am the controller. I am perfect, I am powerful, and I am happy. Or I'm trying to become happy at least. So these are the ideas that are flowing through our mind. And if we take any of these ideas, then Maya puts us into illusion. And we think we're this body. And we make plans how this body is going to control. As it says, idam adyamaya labvam imam prapse manoratam. So much wealth do I have today, and I'll gain more and more according to my schemes. So much do I have, and I'll get more and more in the future. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and all my other enemies will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am surrounded by rich and aristocratic relatives. I shall perform some sacrifice. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, the demoniac could be bewildered by ignorance. So these are the kinds of thoughts that may flow through our minds. But then, Krishna speaking Bhagavad-gita to the sun god Vivishwan, he gave him another idea. My dear sun god, you're not your body, but if you hear knowledge. So our first thing to get out of this misconception called Maya is knowledge. Knowledge means, what is the difference between myself and my body? Am I a spiritual being, or am I a material body? Am I a subtle mind, or am I my intellect? Am I the personality, or what am I? And who's actually the controller? Am I actually doing my activities when I move my hands? Am I the one who's doing it? Or is someone else who's actually the controller of this universe? Now, we may somehow or another understand that I'm not moving the sun. If we're a little humble, we may admit that we're not moving the sun or the moon or any of the stars, or we didn't create this Earth planet that we're on now. But whether that person who's controlling the sun, the moon, the stars, who created all the different elements in this universe, whether he's the one who's moving me, this body, or I'm moving this body. Am I doing everything independently, or am I doing it under Krishna's directions, or the directions of his energy? Now, if I can understand that this energy that's moving, I have some say in what's going on, but I don't have the only say. In other words, if everything belongs to Krishna, then my next question is, if I am actually the servant of Krishna, what does Krishna want me to do with his energy? And therefore we have to find out knowledge. Knowledge means I'm not this body, Krishna is God, and now I have to look around in this world that I'm in and try to understand how Krishna sees the world. That's called perspective. Try to see it from Krishna's point of view, because Krishna is actually a person and he has a purpose for this world. It didn't come about purposelessly, without any purpose. It wasn't that in the beginning there was nothing and nothing got bored and just decided to become something. Mother Nothing told her son Nothing, why don't you make something out of yourself? It's embarrassing. So son Nothing wanted to try to become something, so he tried real hard and he became some gas. And Mother Nothing wasn't satisfied. She said, is that all you can make out of yourself? So Nothing became disturbed in the form of gas and exploded and flew in all different directions. And Mother Nothing said, well, why don't you settle down? And so Nothing settled down, and here we are now. So this is one conception, that there's no God, there's nothing in control, it's all come about by accident. There's no purpose. And therefore, you can read whatever you want, you can do whatever you want, because there's no purpose behind the creation. There's no God, and therefore he has no vision what the whole thing is about. But actually, according to Bhagavad-gita, there is a God, and he has a certain vision what's going on. Now, we also have a certain vision. That vision may not be the same as Krishna's vision. We may look at something just like a beautiful woman that walks down the street and a dog looks at the woman and thinks, well, that would be a nice meal. I wonder what she'd taste like. And a lusty man will look at the same woman and think, well, I wonder if she's open for enjoyment. Well, a brahmachari may look at the woman, an actual real brahmachari, and think that this is possible problems for myself. And a devotee will look at the same woman and think that how can I engage her in Krishna's service? So the same woman, different perspectives. Now the question is, which is Krishna's perspective? Whether we're seeing the same way that Krishna sees things, or we're seeing things through the modes of material nature. Therefore, in Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says, Sadvan Rupa Sarvasha Sharad Bhavati Bharata Sharoma Yo Yo Purusha Yo Yastradas Evasaha. According to the modes of material nature, one acquires a certain type of faith. And a person is said to be a particular faith according to the modes he's acquired. In other words, when we're looking out through our ordinary eyes, conditioned eyes, we'll see things one way. And if we see with a perspective of real knowledge, the perspective that is how Krishna sees things, his point of view, what Krishna's priorities are, how Krishna sees things are integrated within this world. That's called perspective. When we see with those eyes of knowledge, then hopefully our conviction or what we think we're supposed to do will change. Now, if we accept everything belongs to Krishna, getting back to my first point, the next thing is, what does Krishna want me to do with his energies? What does he want me to do with his body? What does he want to do with the things that are on my desk right now? Prabhupada was very careful about how he did everything, including how his desk was arranged. So when the cleaners came in, they had to be very careful to put everything back exactly in the right place. So Prabhupada didn't do anything by accident. It wasn't that, one day a book was here and the next day it was there, and there was no rhyme or reason for what he was doing. Everything he did had a very specific purpose. Everything he said had a certain purpose, and that purpose was to fulfill Krishna's purpose. And he knew what Krishna's purpose was, and he found out through Guru, through Sadhana, through Shastra, and these bring us closer to Krishna. In other words, we're hearing from Guru, Sadhana, and Shastra, as Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita, ultimately to realize Krishna. Krishna says that I am the full absolute truth. I am all beautiful. I have unlimited beauty, unlimited knowledge, unlimited wealth, unlimited fame, unlimited renunciation. He's Krishna. He's all attractive. And the purpose of life is to meet Krishna and to serve him. Now, in order to do that, Krishna says, we have to hear from his devotees. Not only hear from his devotees, but we have to follow the footsteps, the example of his devotees. Therefore he says, Mat Shita Mach Kata Prana Bodhi Antash Parashparam Katayantasvam Nityam Tushanti Charamanti Cha. That the thoughts of my pure devotees, they dwell in me, their lives are surrendered unto me, and they derive great satisfaction, bliss by enlightening one another and conversing about me. So in other words, devotees, real devotees, not only talk about Krishna, talk about how he's a proprietor, talk about how he's the enjoyer, talk about how others, his devotees, serve him in different ways, but they think about these things, and with their prana, they serve Krishna. And therefore, the greater the devotee, the more advanced the devotee, the more his activities clearly manifest what Krishna's intentions are in this world. They clearly show us the path of what Krishna wants us to do with our body, with our mind, with our words, with our everything we have. Or as Krishna says, Tad buddhyas, tad atmanas, tad nishtas, tad parayanaha, gacchanyapana avridim, jnananir dutta kamasha. Well, one's faith, one's mind, one's refuge, one's intelligence are all fixed in the Supreme, that one becomes fully cleansed by complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of self-realization. So our examples, if we want to make progress in Krishna consciousness, are what? Those who are, as Krishna says in the next verse, those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love. In other words, we have to find examples of those who are more steady than we are in serving Krishna. And those who are more enthusiastic to serve Krishna. Serving Krishna means serving also Krishna's devotees, because Krishna and Krishna's devotees are simultaneously one and different. In any case, the devotees talk about, that's what they talk about, how to become more steady in our service to Krishna, not only with its gross body, but also with our subtle minds. Prabhupada writes in the Nectar Devotion that with their intelligence, they understand what Krishna was saying to Arjuna on the battlefield, Kurukshetra, and within their minds, they think of Krishna's activities either on the battlefield, Kurukshetra, or in his activities in Vrindavan. In other words, when we look around us, we should see how Krishna is in this world, and he has a mission. That mission is to bring his other children back to the spiritual kingdom. That's what this whole thing is about. There's nothing else going on here. And the process of bringing people back to the spiritual kingdom is to engage them in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, so they learn how to chant Hare Krishna purely, with pure love and attention. That's what this material world is about. And the perfection of that is in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement as he displayed it 500 years ago, or ultimately that movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu shows us how to become the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. In other words, the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are the pastimes of being a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Naham vipra na chanara patira naham vapi na sudro. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he didn't claim to be a Brahmin or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya or a Shudra. He said, Gopi Bharta Pada Kamalayor Dasa Dasa Anudasa. So we're not only spiritual beings, but we're also servants of the servants of the servants of Krishna. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime in this world, he told one devotee, or he told a number of times, is Yari Deka Tari Kaha Krishna Upadesh Amara Agar Gurhana Tari Desh. Whoever we meet, we have only one pastime with them. It's very simple. We don't have to worry about learning millions and millions of slokas and becoming, great singers or artists. No, we have only one business in this world. Whoever we meet, we should, according to the knowledge, the perspective we have, according to our conviction and our skill, according to the purity of our character, try to help people become Krishna conscious. Now, we may have a certain amount of knowledge, a certain amount of skill, but ultimately we have to pray to Krishna. The one with the most skill is not because they were born necessarily with the most skill, it's because they acquired the greatest skill. And what is the greatest skill? The greatest skill is acquired, as I said to begin with, simply to accept the fact that everything here is Krishna's energy, and Krishna has a purpose. And that purpose we can find out by becoming a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Become a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna means we read Bhagavad-gita, we understand what the Krishna's perspective is, and from his devotees, we find out what Krishna wants us to do with his energies, to serve his mission. And if we do it with love and devotion, then the result is that Krishna will help us remember him. Remember him means we'll think about him, and we'll be able to see him in this world that we're living in right now. Right now, we may look around and we may think we're seeing so many things, men, women. We may think we're, seeing clocks and water, whatever we think we're imagining. But actually, we're seeing Krishna's energy. And if we follow the formula of not only hearing from the devotees how everything belongs to Krishna, but seeing how great devotees who are greater than us, more advanced than us, examples for us, how they utilize the energies that they had in Krishna's service to please Krishna and to please his devotees. Savayamana Krishna Padara Vindayo Vichamsi Vaikunta Gunanuvardhane. Maharaj Ambarish, first of all, fixed his mind upon the lotus feet of Krishna. So we take our example from Maharaj Ambarish. Our first business will be to fix our mind upon Krishna. Savayamana Krishna Padara Vindayo Vichamsi Vaikunta Gunanuvardhane. And then glorify Krishna. Utilize our hands to cleanse the temple, smell the flowers off to Krishna, follow the footsteps of Maharaj Ambarish. Or see Prabhupada. Prabhupada, what was he doing? Whoever he met, his example, his perfection, was not that necessarily he was the greatest singer or the most amazing manager or whatever else. He may have been those things, being an instrument for Krishna, but his real expertise was to invoke within the hearts of the people that he met a sense of Krishna consciousness, an understanding of Krishna consciousness, an inspiration to become Krishna conscious, a recognition of their relation with Krishna, both by Prabhupada's example and by his instructions, to awaken within people's hearts their relationship with Krishna. And this is the instructions he gave us, what we can do, our sadhana and our preaching, so we can awaken within our heart our relation with Krishna and help others reawaken their relation with Krishna. So we have so many instructions, but we also have the examples. The devotees like Prabhupada, he not only preached, but he also acted. So we can see what he did and how it relates to us. Now, not everything that Prabhupada did, not everything that Ambrish Maharaj did, not everything that Prahlad Maharaj did relates to our personal lives. But there's something in what they were doing that relates to our lives that can help us become more steady in our service to Krishna, become more enthusiastic in our service to Krishna and to Krishna's devotees. And what is that field of activities? As I'll go over again. First, we have knowledge, this theoretical knowledge. Then we have to put it into perspective so we can see it with our eyes, what Krishna is talking about in our lives. When we read Bhagavad-gita, it's not some book that was written 5,000 years ago to Arjuna on some remote battlefield in India, but it's actually Krishna speaking personally to us. And since we have Srila Prabhupada's purports, it's Prabhupada speaking to us, and we have to see what they're telling us according to our circumstances, so that what? We can engage our activities, our body, mind, words, our faith, our refuge, everything in a way so that we become more steady, more enthusiastic in our service to Krishna and his devotees. And what vision are we trying to, what are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to develop? Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmani Gavi Hastini Chuni Chaiva Swapake Cha Pandita Samadarshana. The result, our first result will be, well, not necessarily the first result, but a result will be, we'll be able to see everyone as Krishna's eternal servant. Not only the human beings, but even the elephant, the cow, the dog, and the dog eater, that within everyone's heart is Krishna. And that as we have a relation with Krishna, we have a relationship to everyone to help them become a better servant of Krishna. Then our minds will become equally poised. We won't become disturbed by loss and gain, by happiness and distress. We'll be able to go on. And what will be our reward for all that? Bhaya sparsheva saktatma vidyat yatmini yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. That we'll always be entranced, remembering Krishna. And we won't be disturbed by insignificant things that come and go within this material world. And therefore, we won't be very much attracted to temporary things that will cause our either temporary happiness or afflict us with temporary distress. Instead of that, we'll become tolerant. We'll be able to tolerate whatever desires, material desires and aversions we have, and then we'll be able to proceed straight on the path of reviving our relation with Krishna. So the purport is, as I said, we want to get knowledge, we want to get perspective, we want to develop the conviction by experience that my aim in life is to develop the skills necessary to become Krishna conscious myself and to help others become Krishna conscious. I want to develop the ability to inspire others to perform the activities of devotional service, especially the 5 powerful processes that Srila Rupa Goswami outlines in the Nectar of Devotion. We want to get people to chant Hare Krishna, just as we should be chanting Hare Krishna. We want devotees and people in general to read Bhagavad-gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's purports. We want ourselves and others to worship Krishna in the form of the deities. We want people and ourselves to serve the devotees appropriately, according to their level of spiritual advancement. And we want to make the whole world into a spiritual atmosphere, and what to speak of our houses. So we may not be at the temple this time. the temple may not be open, but wherever we are, we have the same thing. Even there, we have a wife or a husband or children, whatever we may have, but we should see them in relation to Krishna. And all our dealings with them should be to help them become Krishna conscious. And we should see this where we are now, it all belongs to Krishna. And just to meditate, what does Krishna want me to do? How he wants me to keep my house clean, how he wants me to sit down with my family more in the morning and the evening, chant Hare Krishna together, worship the deities, hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-gita. We can perform these powerful processes everywhere. It's not necessary to do them in the temple. We can develop our loving relationship with our husband and wife anywhere, but in relation to Krishna. If we really want to have a peaceful, happy family, then we should follow the formula for doing that in Krishna consciousness. Now, as I go back again, this knowledge is there in the Bhagavad-gita, but we have to see it. We have to think, what is Krishna trying to show me? What is he trying to tell me? So I see my world that I'm living in a more Krishna conscious perspective. That probably said that's called assimilating the knowledge. In order to assimilate the knowledge, we have to remember the knowledge. We don't need a whole lot of knowledge, but we need some knowledge to remember. If we could just remember I'm eternal servant of Krishna all day long, that's sufficient to make our lives perfect. We don't have to memorize millions of verses. We just have to remember that. And then we have to apply it. And as we apply it in our life, what do we apply? We have our 6 loving exchanges with the devotees. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind and confidence, and inquiring confidentially, accepting prasad and offering prasad. These are the 6 loving exchanges with the devotees, with all the devotees, our family members, the devotees in the temple, whatever. These are loving exchanges. And Srila Rupa Goswami says, we have to apply them intelligently. So for those who are more advanced in undeviated, uninterrupted devotional service, we find out from them, according to when we can see someone's more advanced than we are, then we can inquire from them in a particular field. Someone may be more steady in chanting, they're coming to the, doing a morning program every day. So we inquire from them, how did you become steady in doing this? We see other devotees, they're more expert in enthusing the devotees, other devotees, inspiring them to become Krishna conscious. So we inquire from them, we see their example. How do they become inspirational to help people become more steady, enthusiastic themselves? So these devotees we can take as our guides or our gurus to make advancement in some field of Krishna consciousness. They may not be perfect in every field, but we have to see who are actually our gurus in the different fields of activities of Krishna consciousness advancement. Maybe they have some qualities we want to acquire. Maybe they have some steadiness we want to acquire, and they become our gurus. And for those who are on the same level as we are, then we cooperate with each other to help innocent people develop their Krishna consciousness. And for those who are on a lower level, we try to act appropriately with them to inspire them, to give them the inspiration, the knowledge to come to a higher level. And some devotees even, and some people who are not serious about Krishna consciousness, then we don't associate with them very intimately because we cannot inspire them or direct them, and they can't inspire or direct us. So we offer them respects within our minds from a distance. We don't at least intimately associate with them. So this is called skill. The skill of knowing how to interact with others, either as their student in some way, or as their assistant, or to cooperate with them, or to know who not to get involved with, who not to intimately associate with in the loving exchanges. so as not to disturb their minds and disturb our minds also. So that's called skill. And if we acquire knowledge and we utilize it in the right perspective, with the right perspective, and we develop the skill of interpersonal relationships based upon Krishna consciousness, based upon the loving exchanges appropriately done, then gradually our conviction in Krishna consciousness will develop, because Krishna will give us more and more intelligence how to become expert at loving exchanges with Krishna, with Krishna's devotees, with innocent people, and even with those who are envious of Krishna, how to avoid them and not become distracted by them. And the result of that is our conviction, our realization, our expertise in Krishna consciousness will develop, and then we'll choose to develop and to manifest the character of a pure devotee, one who's always engaged in Krishna's service with the good qualities of a pure devotee due to intimately associating with Krishna and his devotees, always following the instructions and the example of higher devotees, and always striving to become more and more an instrument in Krishna's pure devotional service. And then Krishna will reveal everything to us, just like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So again, in this verse, it explains that the sun god is an example. He's in our disciple succession, and Prabhupada is advising that we follow in the footsteps of the Lord's great devotees. Mahajano yena kata sapanta, tarko apratishta, shrutiya vibhina, savarishirya syanabhinam, dharmasya tvam nihitam guhayam, mahajano yena kata sapanta. This is in the Mahabharata, and it is explained, tarko apratishta. Arguing is not bad, but it should lead to a conclusion. Chaitanya Charitamrita says we can discuss things, but it should have some purpose. Whereas Prabhupada said that, what is that? Dry arguments, absurd inquiries, and blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. That one should not only hear submissively, but one should get a clear understanding through service, submission, and inquiry. The reason why I'm putting my hand like this is that there's a fly trying to attack me. I'm just defending myself. So we don't want to act blindly. We don't want to have absurd inquiries. We should inquire, we should discuss things, but with some objective, to get a clear understanding who we are and what Krishna wants us to do, who Krishna is, what our relationship is, and ultimately what Krishna wants us to do, how Krishna wants us to see things, how Krishna wants us to interact with others to fulfill his purpose. So we're not against argument, discussing, but it should have a purpose. We want to find out what the great authorities are and who to follow them, what other examples are. And we want to discuss things from the point of view of Shastra. But ultimately we have to choose a Mahajan, an Uttama Adhikari. We may have so many other examples. As a matter of fact, the Uttama Adhikari, the topmost devotee, will give us the instructions how to properly honor every other devotee. That's why that's how they became an Uttama Adhikari, by following another Uttama Adhikari and becoming expert in relationships with everyone that they met, helping them become Krishna conscious. So it's not that my only authority is Prabhupada. He's an Uttama Adhikari and everyone else is useless. Or I have an initiating guru and I faithfully serve him, at least whenever he comes around. And I throw flowers at him as my divine worship to him. But, everyone else is more or less, and they say in English at least, chopped cabbage. You know what that means? Chopped cabbage? It means that they're more or less useless. I may tolerate the other devotees because I'm a great devotee. I'm supposed to at least tolerate others. But I see no one else as my example. I see no one else as my inspiration. I don't accept anyone else's instructions because, after all, I have my Uttama Adhikari initiating guru. And if I simply serve whatever little instructions I can remember what he told me, then my life has become perfect because he's so merciful. In spite of the fact I'm rascal number one, still he's going to bring me back to Godhead inconceivably, by some inconceivable mercy. Now the mercy is, the Uttama Adhikari teaches us how to love, respect, appreciate, serve every living entity appropriately, according to their development of Krishna consciousness. That's the mercy of the guru, of the expert devotee. So we should find such an expert devotee, dharmasya tvam nihitam guhayam, an expert devotee like Prabhupada, or those who are following his footsteps and preaching the same thing he's doing, who's giving us inspiration and direction and example so that we become more like a pure devotee ourselves. Otherwise, everyone has to choose a leader. Mahajno yena kata sapanta. We're all going to choose some leader or many leaders, but if we don't get the right leader, then we won't get to the right. If we don't choose the right leaders, then we won't get to the right destination. So Prabhupada said, if you want to find Narada Muni, then find out where his footsteps are and then follow them. And if you follow them, eventually you'll get to Narada Muni. So in our society, officially, at least, we accept Prabhupada as our leader, and therefore we have his books. Now, if we don't take shelter of his books, we don't pray to him, we don't pray to Krishna, we don't try to see through their perspective, we don't try to develop the same skills that they developed, we don't try to develop the same conviction and character that they had, then we won't be really accepting Prabhupada as we claim him as his being the founder acharya of our society. Now, there are many other devotees who are maybe more advanced than we are, and we should also try to see the good qualities that they have, the direction they're giving us to develop those good qualities, the direction they're giving us in devotional service, in Krishna consciousness, so we can advance and come to the same level that they're on, or understand Prabhupada more clearly, so that we can eventually come to the level of pure devotion in our own way. So this is science. The science of learning, not only for, as Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad-gita, to get that direction, it's not only from the devotees, but also the devotees are following Krishna, and Krishna is speaking Bhagavad-gita. So if we trust the devotees because we get the vision from Krishna to see how they're following Krishna. We don't trust the devotees blindly, just officially, because they have a certain hairstyle, they have a certain dress, or they have a certain name or title or position. We trust the devotees because Krishna is giving us the intelligence, if we want it, to see how they're following the previous acharyas, how they're following the previous authorities, and ultimately the ultimate authority, Krishna. If we do that, if we can see that, if we can experience that by following the instructions, the example, then our Krishna consciousness is growing. Krishna is giving us more and more intelligence, and he's revealing himself more and more. So we're becoming more and more ecstatic in devotional service. We're seeing things more clearly, and we're becoming detached from everything that's drawing our minds away from Krishna. Then we're following the right authorities in the right way, and our path to Godhead, back to Krishna, will be clear and steady. Inspiring and steady, brothers. So again, as Prabhupada writes, we should first of all accept everything belongs to Krishna, then find out from Krishna in his book, Bhagavad-gita, as well as from his representatives, how Krishna wants us to utilize his energies. And if we do that with faith and with love, as Prabhupada writes, that one should have no goal in life save and except act in Krishna consciousness. And while acting this way, one should think of Krishna only. That I've been appointed to discharge this particular duty by Krishna, and I'm doing it just to please him. And the result is that one will naturally think about Krishna. That is perfect Krishna consciousness. Now, after doing something whimsically, Prabhupada writes, that we cannot offer the result to Krishna. Then we should stop doing things whimsically and start doing the right things that we can offer to Krishna. So that order of Krishna comes down through the spiritual, through the chain of disciple succession from the bona fide spiritual master. So if one gets a bona fide spiritual master and acts according to his direction, then one's life, success in life in Krishna consciousness is guaranteed. So we have our Diksha Gurus. Our Diksha Gurus are connecting us with Prabhupada and disciple succession. And we have our Shiksha Gurus who are also connecting us, giving us examples, giving us instructions, so that we can take advantage of the instructions given to us by our Diksha Guru, which should be the same as Prabhupada's, which are in the same line as those of the previous acharyas, and ultimately coming from Krishna. And if we find some difference in them, then we should try to use our intelligence and inquire how to resolve those differences so that we can see within our society the simultaneously one but difference in our instructions that are coming to us from various authorities. So that's another topic we won't go into right now, but I'll just ask if there's any questions. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. There's some other questions.
Yeah, there's like I think I wonder with the demigods, like for example with Brahma, because about his position. So we also say that Brahma, he's also servant, but is he also like passing, like it's in the Bhagavad-gita, it's also said that Brahma dies. So when Brahma dies, is also he as a soul passing to another body, or is it again like, is he going to be again Brahma? Because I have to, what I understand from the Shastras, that Brahma is like a pure devotee and is acting according to Krishna's will. So how can his position change?
Well, Krishna, when he breathes out universes, at least the seeds of the universe, and then they grow, and in different ways different Brahmas are manifested. Just like we have Chaturmukhi Brahma in our universe, which was grew from Krishna's abdomen, from a lotus flower. But there are unlimited universes, practically speaking. There are as many seeds, mustard seeds in a bag of mustard seeds, that many universes there are. And there's a lot of mustard seeds in a bag of mustard seeds. So some of the Brahmas have 10 heads, some of them have 100 heads, some have 1,000,000 heads, some of them have 10 million heads. So there are a variety of sizes of universes and different sizes of Brahma according to how big the universe is. Now, there are Karmi Brahmas, there are Jnani Brahmas, and there are Bhakta Brahmas. Not every Brahma is on the same level of consciousness. To become Brahma means that you have to become expert in following Varnashram for so many lifetimes, 100 lifetimes or something like that. Then you might get the post of Brahma or some elevated demigod. No, not that every Brahma who takes the position of Brahma is a pure devotee, but they're the best in the universe. Sometimes when there's not such a devotee or such a personality to take the post of Brahma, Krishna has to take the post of Brahma himself. Now, in our particular universe, Brahma was not necessarily, as it says in the Krishna book, he was a sadhana bhakta. Bhakta, but he was doing sadhana. regulative. So therefore, when he stole Krishna's cowherd boys and calves, he made a mistake, which later on he repented for, and he came back as Haridas Thakur, and then he became a pure devotee. So presently in our universe, at least, Brahma is a pure devotee. But in other universes, Brahma may not be a pure devotee, and therefore at the end of this creation, at the end of the manifestation of the universe, after 311 trillion, 40 billion years, when everything is destroyed, generally what happens is that Brahma goes up to Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. But if he's not a pure devotee, then he has to come back to the universe in some form, according to what he's done. And if he is a pure devotee, then he'll, like all the other pure devotees, those who are eligible, they'll go and join Krishna in some universe, get trained up further in their relation with Krishna, so they, by the Nitya Siddha devotees, in some Leela, in some universe, like Krishna had in our universe 5,000 years ago, so that they, when they're trained up, they can go back to the spiritual sky and resume their eternal relation with Krishna. So there's variety, it's not all one. Although Bhagavatam doesn't go into every detail, because otherwise we already don't have time to read the Bhagavatam. But if it was 10 million volumes, we certainly wouldn't have time to read it. But if you become a demigod, the demigods have thousands of times more pages in the Bhagavatam because they have more time to read.
Thank you for the answer.
There was some question in the chat, I think. How do I find what Krishna's plan is for me? Is that it? In practical terms, how should one perform everyday responsibilities? Example, in addition to japa, reading scriptures while on their journey towards perfecting Krishna consciousness. Well, everyone is different, but Prabhupada gave us a transcendental sandwich. That is, he expected in the morning and the evening, we perform the 5 powerful processes of devotional service. Namely, here we get up, we chant japa, we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-gita, we serve each other by hearing and chanting together, we try to make the atmosphere spiritual, and we have some deity, even a picture of the deity is also the deity. Or even if we can put the deity in our mind, thinking about Krishna. We do that in the morning, the evening, and during the day we may have some service. Someone may be a householder, they may be working to maintain their family. Someone else may be full-time devotee engaged in preaching. Some devotees may be taking care of the deities. So during the day we apply what we've learned in our devotional service to the day. And then at night we come back and we have the 5 powerful processes all over again. So when we go to sleep, we dream about Krishna. So what we do during the day may be different. Everyone has a different occupation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had Gopinath Acharya. He was serving the king. He had Ramananda Roy hearing and chanting with him. He had others worshiping the deities, Gopinath Patanayaka. So Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had his devotees engaged in different services, but basically there was always time to hear and chant about Krishna and serve him. The second question is, how do I find what Krishna's plan is for me? Well, I guess Krishna's plan is that we go back to the spiritual world. How we get there, as I said, we have those 5 powerful processes called our sadhana bhakti. And then his plan is that whatever our talents, our abilities, our inspiration, utilize that for the Sankirtan movement. If we like to study, we like to tell others about Krishna, then that's what we should do. We should study Prabhupada's books, we should preach, but don't preach in such a way as to try to make others believe that I'm actually intelligent, I'm your savior, I'm the one who's giving you this knowledge. One should realize that actually we're simply instruments for Krishna. Krishna is the preacher, Krishna is the one who's giving the inspiration, the knowledge, And we simply have the opportunity to become his instrument and share with others the good fortune of hearing from Krishna and from his devotees in disciple succession. As Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Devotion, one should not think himself to be a great preacher, but simply an instrument for the previous acharyas. And be able, by becoming an instrument for the previous acharyas, be able to do good for oneself and for others. And one is inspired to organize things, like Arjuna. He was a Kshatriya. At the beginning, he didn't want to fight for Krishna. But later on, when Krishna gave him instructions, then he became inspired and he fought for Krishna. So we should organize the Sankirtan movement if we have that ability. Don't organize our lives so that we make our lives more materially comfortable and opulent. Organize our lives so that the Sankirtan movement becomes more accessible and more opulent, increases. So Krishna actually wants us to develop, and if we have money, resources, we like to collect things, then collect them for the Sankirtan movement. Don't collect it to decorate our homes and our wives and our children and ourselves. Try to decorate the deity. Try to decorate the Sankirtan movement. And if we do that, then we'll get the blessings. And what are the ultimate blessings? We'll develop a taste of hearing and chanting about Krishna, rather than hearing and chanting about the glories of myself, my family, and whatever else I think is related to this gross and subtle body that I think I am. Instead, we'll develop a taste, hearing and chanting about Krishna and his devotees. Now we should understand that Krishna, he's more interested in developing our character than he is in our comfort. So if we think that, Krishna, I want so many things for my comfort, and you're not giving it to me, you're putting me through so many different difficulties, what are you doing? You're not reciprocating properly with me. No, the actual mercy of Krishna is he'll put us into a situation where our character will develop, where in spite of the problems we're going through, we're able to think about him. That's his ultimate mercy. At the time of death, we may be on the most comfortable bed, we may be in the most opulent house, we may be surrounded by the most admiring followers, but if we can't tolerate and think about Krishna, then our life was a failure. That all the comfortable beds and adoring followers and nice atmosphere that we're in will have no meaning if we're not thinking about Krishna at the time of death. And therefore, Krishna is much more interested in developing our character, which will enable us to tolerate so many inconveniences, at the same time be a steady, sincere servant of Krishna, deeply absorbed in Krishna consciousness in any circumstance. So I think we're running a little over time here. What time does the class usually go to?
We still have a little time, and we have one question left in the chat box and another question that has been submitted to me. So I think we can still do that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for the helpful lecture. The person with whom I live together cannot accept that everything is Krishna's energy and arrangement, and becomes angry and jealous when I mention it. From my perspective, it is then not possible to develop a loving relationship with the connection to Krishna. What do you think? I try already 5 years. Thank you very much. Well, I can give my own example, which is not a great example, but my mother was, in some ways, she was a rather pious lady. She was completely into health. That was her main focus in life. Probably why I became the health and welfare minister for ISKCON. But she had no interest at all in Krishna consciousness. A matter of fact, she lived to around 94, and I visit her maybe once or twice a year. And I've been a devotee for over 50 years now. But she never wanted to hear anything about Krishna. She couldn't tolerate hearing about Krishna. Matter of fact, one time she said to me that, what is your Krishna consciousness movement about anyhow? Then she said, no, don't tell me, I don't want to hear it. And don't. So that was it was a very, not exactly the most encouraging relationship I had. But since I went home and visited her twice a year, what I did is I only talked about things that interested her. And I tried to get them in relation to Krishna as much as possible. So she liked health, so we talked about health. I go home at that time and I do things in turn. We talk about that. In other words, why create why not deal with people according to their interests and needs, rather than being forced them to deal with our interests and needs. So if you want to live with someone, try to make it as pleasant as possible. Don't force them to do anything that they don't want to do. Devotional service is voluntary. Love cannot be forced. You cannot tell people, love me. You had a little child, you told the little child, love me. You got to love me. If you don't love me, you're in trouble. I told you to love me. You're not loving me, No, you have to be lovable, and then they'll love you. So similarly, if we want people to appreciate what we're doing, we have to be lovable. So we're lovable to people, and we try to serve their needs and interests as much as possible within the realm of Krishna consciousness. If they develop a relation with us, then they might inquire after some time, what makes you so lovable? They may become interested. If we become lovable, then they'll want to find out how we became lovable. And if we become antagonistic, they won't want to deal with us at all. It'll be a very unpleasant relationship. Now, to what degree that is depends. If someone, wants to forces us to engage in sinful activity, then it's not a very good combination to stay with them. Those that, as it says in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that one can serve a husband as long as he's not fallen, especially if he's trying to get us to be fallen. That would not be a very good relationship, under most circumstances. Sometimes circumstances may force us to do things that would be undesirable because that's the only alternative we have. In any case, we have to use our intelligence and see what acquired from advanced devotees, and use our intelligence and see what's our best opportunity to become Krishna conscious. And what's the other question?
So the other question that has been submitted to me is about trust. The person asks, how to develop trust in devotees? Do you have to trust them merely based on the fact that they are devotees? And what if you don't have any trust in them? Maybe because you have made some bad experience with them. So what can you do?
Well, devotee is a pretty big term. There are different kinds of devotees. Not every devotee is a pure devotee. There's first-class devotees, there's second-class devotees, and there's third-class devotees. So Sri Rupa Goswami advises we have to learn how to discriminate which devotees are on what level and deal with them appropriately. Trust doesn't mean blind trust. Trust is based upon experience. Now, of course, our experience is not going to be perfect either because we're not perfect. So we shouldn't be so quick to condemn others because of what they're doing wrong, because it's maybe likely that we're doing the same thing wrong ourselves. On the other hand, we have to see through the eyes of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra and try to see what the devotees are doing right. And if we see what they're doing right, and we see what we can do which is right, and in our relationship with the other devotees, we follow their good example, then we'll develop some faith in them, because Krishna will reciprocate with us. If we see the good things, we should also see the bad things, because we want to avoid the bad things, but we shouldn't take the bad things as their identity. Or as Jesus Christ said, hate the sin, but not the sinner. If someone's in the shower and they're getting clean, then we shouldn't criticize them for being dirty. It's a waste of time. Eventually they'll get clean if they just stay in the shower. But that doesn't mean that everyone's in the shower is automatically clean. But they're becoming clean, so we respect them for being in the shower. On the other hand, there are persons who are already clean, and we should recognize that and follow their example and instructions so we can become clean ourselves. And as a result of following instructions and example, as I said, the test is, are we actually feeling more and more love for Krishna and his devotees? Are we actually seeing everyone and everything more clearly in relation to Krishna? And are we becoming detached from the things that draw our minds away from Krishna? This is the test of whether we have the right example and we're following the right examples and we're following the right instructions, if these things happen. Otherwise, if we do that, then our faith in the process will develop, because we're actually following the process. And if we don't have the right, we don't know what the right examples are, we don't know what the right instructions for us are, and we don't develop growing love for Krishna, and for everyone and everything in relation to Krishna, if we don't see everything clearly, more and more clearly in relation to Krishna, what Krishna wants us to do, what Krishna wants us to say, how Krishna wants us to think, and if we don't feel a growing detachment from the things that draw our minds away from Krishna, then we have to consider more clearly what examples I'm following and what instructions I'm following and how I'm following them. So in summary, blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. One should not only hear submissively, but one should get a clear understanding through submission, service, and inquiries. So our faith in the devotees will develop when we get the right, when we ourselves see things more clearly, and we know which devotees to reciprocate in which way with. If we choose the appropriate devotees to follow, to become more steady and enthusiastic in our devotional service, if we choose the right devotees to cooperate with, if we choose the right devotees to only respect within our mind and not to intimately associate with, then we'll develop confidence and faith in the process, because that's what the process is all about. But it's only when we have that confidence and faith clearly, or at least when we're getting positive experience in Krishna consciousness, or experiencing growing happiness and ecstasy in Krishna consciousness, can real faith is actually being developed. It should be experienced. Krishna consciousness is not just a theory, it's an experience. And unless we're experiencing Krishna consciousness, then there's no question of real faith developing. Is that right?
Thank you very much, Maharaj, for answering
Thank you.
all of these questions. And thank you to all of those devotees who have joined us tonight from all over the world, or from all over Europe at least. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you soon again, Maharaj. Thank you very much. We will be uploading.
Thank you all. Hare Krishna. Happy Kartik. May we have Kartik every day in our hearts.
And happy Diwali and happy advance Govardhan Puja this upcoming weekend. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Prabhu's disappearance day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And next week we will be joined by His Holiness Krishna Kshetra Swami for Prabhupada's disappearance day.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.